All right, welcome to the Jank Tank, and this is our second Brewers review for the new Avatar: The Last Airbender set. And I'm gonna preface this by saying, kind of like I did in the first one, is that I am not a competitive Magic player. I'm not a pro, and this is more or less just a sort of look at cards that I find interesting and unique and things I want to play with once the set releases, instead of, a regular limited set review where we go card by card, every single thing in the set, and rate it and talk about it. So we won't be covering the whole set in this video, but we are going to take a peek at some interesting cards from the Avatar universe. I grew up watching this show, one of my favorite shows ever, so I'm super pumped about this, and I think we're just going to get right into it. So let's get moving here. First thing I want to talk about is actually the 4 Ascension cards. So these are a cycle of enchantments: white, blue, green, and red. No black one. And they basically all get quest counters, and then once they have 4 or more quest counters, something happens. So the Airbender Ascension, when it enters, you get to airbend a target creature, which means you exile it, and then you can cast it for 2 generic mana later. And then it gets counters by having creatures ETB. The blue one says whenever your creature controlled deals combat damage, you get a counter on it, and then if it has 4 more counters, you draw a card. Earthbender Ascension is 3 mana. When it enters, you Earthbend 2, which means you get to animate a land into a 2/2 creature. It also searches for a basic land card and puts it onto the battlefield tapped. And then Landfall, if it has 4 more counters, you get a counter on target creature control. It also gains Trample. And then the Firebender Ascension is 2 mana, comes with a 2/2 red soldier creature token with Firebending 1. And then whenever creature control attacks and causes a triggered ability for that creature to trigger, you put a quest counter on it. If it has 4 or more, you get to copy those targets. And I'm sorry if I didn't do the first one. When it has 4 or more counters, beginning of your end step, you get to exile target creature you control and return it to the battlefield. So over on the left here, I kind of have some related cards. Basically, these are smaller versions or lower cost enchantments of bigger effects. Airbender Ascensions like Conjurer's Closet, Coastal Piracy, and Waterbender Ascension are pretty similar. Farhaven Elf is kind of similar to Earthbender Ascension. It's a body, it searches for a land, but not has upside. And then Firebender Ascension is a little different, but it does play really well with Mobilize from the recent set. Where, like, if you go turn 1 Stadium Headliner, you get to swing, it triggers its ability, you get a counter on that, and then as you go, you get to start getting double Mobilize triggers if it has 4 more counters on it. So I think this is just a sweet cycle of cards. Yes, you have to work for them a little bit, but with things like ETBs, like this is a 2/2 for 2 with Firebending 1 with upside. This is a 2 mana blink your creature, can recast it. Airbending is really cool because you can also, recast things like Valky. You play Valky for 2 mana, and then you can cast it for 2 generic if you airbend it and flip it into the 7 mana Tibalt on the backside. And then the Earthbender Ascension especially seems strong, right? You get 3 mana, a 2/2 body, and an extra land. And again, Earthbend animates a land, but also when it dies, it comes back tapped. So if you Earthbend, a Ghost Quarter or something like that, you can immediately Ghost Quarter and you get that card back tapped to the battlefield to do it again. So pretty spicy. I don't know if they'll all see play, like I said, because they do have a cost to get to that point. But like Waterbender Ascension, I didn't mention, but Waterbend 4, which means you can tap creatures or artifacts to pay for 1. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. That's pretty sweet, right? You can just start making things unblockable and chip in and drawing cards as you go. So just very flavorful, first of all, but just, a cool cycle that I'm excited to mess around with. Next up, we have Enter the Avatar State. So obviously lessons are back, and we'll talk more about those in a couple slides. But this is a 1 mana instant. Until end of turn, target creature control becomes an avatar, and it gets flying, first strike, lifelink, and hexproof. That's a lot of keywords for just 1 mana on an instant. And if you've been around in Historic for a while, Feather the Redeemed did have its time in the sun. It's not really good anymore, but it plays pretty well with Enter the Avatar state. So Feather, you can see on your screen, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it targets a creature, you can exile it. As it resolves, if you do, you get it right back to your hand, which means you have the ability to give something flying, first strike, lifelink, and hexproof every single turn. Also neat that it protects your Feather the Redeemed with hexproof, so you just kind of have like a recurable little engine card there that also staves off aggro because you're giving the lifelink. Obviously, Feather already has flying, so it doesn't really matter, but first strike's pretty sweet on a 3/4 body too. So, I mean, there's been a lot of sense since Feather has had its 15 minutes of fame, so maybe there's something there. It is a 3 mana 3/4 that does nothing on ETB, but I don't know. It might be time to revisit it. Could be fun. And then, obviously, Odric Lunar Marshall is not good. Not a good card. But it is kind of cool to Enter the Avatar state. It's a 4 mana 3/3, so I don't think you're really going to play it. But if you have an Odric and you get to throw Enter the Avatar state on it or a creature or something, it gives your entire board state the same keyword. So everything gets flying, first strike, lifelink, and hexproof. It is a human. Humans is a relevant creature type. It's a soldier. Soldier is a relevant creature type. Not saying it's good, but just a cool interaction I was looking at as I was thinking of things to do with it. Next up, we have 2 variations of Momo. One being a rare, one being an uncommon. Both 1 mana, 1/1 legendary creatures. Both have flying. The top one, the first non-lemur creature spell with flying you cast during each of your turns costs 1 less. And whenever another creature you control with flying enters, gets a counter. Second one, Playful Pet, flying, vigilance. When it leaves the battlefield, you get a food, you get a counter on something, or you scry 2. I think these cards are actually kind of hot. Both of them play with Mox Amber because they're legendary. Momo Friendly Flyer is very similar to like Champion of the Parish for humans, but in this case, flyers. And it's just gonna grow, so it's actually a super aggressive 1-drop. Yes, it doesn't get counters, but it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So if you can spam a lot of cheap things, especially if you're doing like Mox Amber, turn 1 Friendly Flyer, right? Turn 2 Mox land, play Clarion Conqueror, play Judge's Familiar. This swings for 3. Suddenly you have a Hate Bear on the board plus some interaction in the form of a free sacrifice from Judge's Familiar. I didn't actually double check this, but I believe since Overlord of the Flood Pits has flying, you can also curve Friendly Flyer turn 1 into Flood Pits impending turn 2 because it gets a reduced cost. Might have to double check that, but I think that's how it works. And then Playful Pet, not as good obviously as Friendly Flyer, but still decent, especially since it's a legendary creature. I could definitely see some sort of white weenie list in terms of like a flying tribal kind of deck. We also have like Awestruck Signet or whatever that gets bigger and turns into a 5/4 as you play more creatures with flying. So some cool interactions. This one's definitely better than Playful Pet, but I think you can do something with both of them. Next up, this is a lot of stuff on the screen, but allies are back with Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we don't have a ton of allies on Arena, but I just picked a few of the cards that you see on your screen because I believe that they're going to be ones that could make an ally deck work in Historic. We have a lot of rainbow lands, so I don't think the mana base is necessarily an issue, right? You have Cavern of Souls, you have Secluded Courtyard, you have Unclaimed Territory, you have Ancient Ziggurat, you have Starting Town, you have Mana Confluence, so you can play 5-color allies pretty easily. Earth and Ally is probably the most, and Earth King's Lieutenant are probably the 2 most interesting to me, because Earth and Ally is a 1 mana 0/2. Earthbend for 7. You need all 5 colors. But then this creature gets +1/+1 for each color among allies you control. So if you're playing Leyline of the Guild packs, this is a 1 mana 5/2, which is pretty good. Kind of reminiscent of like Archpriest of Iona from like the party mechanic. But a 5/2 with just Leyline is pretty good when you're already going to be playing 5 colors, which means you could also like dabble into like Leyline binding and stuff like that in terms of removal. So I thought that's pretty sweet. But then Earth King's Lieutenant, trample human soldier ally. When it enters, you get a counter on each other ally you control, and when another ally enters, you get a counter on that. So it's basically a tribe shifted Dahlia's Lieutenant, but it also plays well with Dahlia's Lieutenant because these are all humans. So you could have two mana Lord effects that grow as you continue to play your other creatures. The other ones on here are just kind of interesting. This is a 2 mana 1/1 that creates another ally. It has flash, kind of relevant. This guy gains you life, and then if it's the second time this ability has resolved, draw a card. That's pretty good on a 2/2 body, right? Keeps you gassed up, keeps you moving. Boiling Rock Rider is 3 mana 3/3 with Firebending 1. But tapped and untapped ally you control, you get to exile a card from a graveyard, and then when it attacks, you may cast an ally spell from among cards you exiled with it. So yes, it can act as Grave Hate, exile your opponent's stuff by using some extra creatures you might have, but it also works as rebuying your own stuff in the late game if you can keep chipping in with it. So kind of cool. 3 mana, and it's probably like the only relevant black colored ally, but it's a human too. We talked about Lieutenant, and then Qatar the Fearless is 3 mana 3/3 legendary. If a trigger ability of an ally you control triggers an additional time. So you get to double up on invasion reinforcements. You get to draw 2 cards on South Pole Voyager, or gain 2 life on things like that, or put double counters with Earth King's Lieutenant. So I think if you're dabbling more into Bant, like ally into like reinforcements into Katara into like Lieutenant sounds disgusting. Just sounds gross. So I think you could have a decent aggro deck. We do have a couple allies. Reckless Bushwhacker and Drana are probably the only decent ones on Arena, but I don't know if you want to break away from the human tribal theme either. I think you're better off being humans and allies together, but excited to mess around with these. These are pretty sweet. We have to talk about shrines because we are getting 5 new ones. Each of them legendary enchantment. They have some sort of effect for each other shrine you control. So the white one, 4 mana. When it enters, you get X counters on each creature you control, where X is number of shrines. Whenever a shrine enters, you put a counter on each creature. Blue one, when it enters, draw a card for each shrine. So kind of like Summit of the Guild Pact, or Guild Summit from the Gates deck. Whenever another shrine you control enters, draw a card. Crescent Island Temple is 4 mana. When it enters, for each shrine, you get a 1/1 red monk with prowess, which is actually pretty sweet. They get bigger as you play more shrines. And then same thing, whenever another shrine enters, you get a 1/1 red token with prowess. The Air Temple, the black one, each opponent loses X and gains X, where X is the number of shrines you control. Drains for 1 on ETB. And then the green one is 4 mana. You get to search for basic lands, put them on the field tapped, and then same thing, whenever you play a shrine, you get a basic land tapped onto the field. So interesting that they continue getting ETBs throughout the game. You just get a sort of one-time effect equal to the number of shrines you have when they enter, but then you get to get value off them, although less as you go. So out of all these, I don't know if there are creature shrines. I don't think they're as good as just the traditional enchantment ones, but like Spirit Oasis, Northern Air Temple seems very strong, especially when we have Sanctum of Stonefangs, Honden of Infinite Rage, and some other relevant blue and black shrines. So obviously, if you played like the red and white ones together, they kind of combo because you're making creatures. There's the green shrine that makes a bunch of 1/1s too. I personally haven't played this deck, but you might want to sort of start veering away from some of the enchantment creatures and start going strictly back to, you know, an enchantment based, even like Pillow Fort, right? We have Sphere of Safety now. We have the Solemnity Lock. So these are actually decent effects, especially Air Temple and Sanctum playing together. Could be kind of cool. You have the White Shrine that taps things down. You might be able to sort of just build yourself a fort and hide behind the shrines and play a long game rather than trying to hit like Sanctum and Honden every game. But we'll mess around with it. These are all uncommon, so it should be pretty easy to build a deck and relatively cheap. Okay, we said we were going to talk about lessons. Lessons are back, and they're much better this time around. Problem is, we don't have a ton of good learn cards from Strixhaven. Not that you need them. Some of these are good enough to be played in the main deck and not even worry about it. But it would be cool if you could get them working with some of the pre-existing cards we have. Over here, the one that people are talking about the most is Accumulate Wisdom. It's basically Anticipate. You look at the top 3, you get one of those cards in your hand. But if you have 3 lessons in your graveyard, you get all 3 cards. So it's 2 mana, get 3, which is pretty hot. We now have some pretty cheap like interaction and sort of draw and things like that. Boomerang Basics is just 1 mana, bounce something. If you control it, you draw a card. It's a sorcery, but it's still pretty good. Shared Roots is just a rampant growth. That's a lesson. Search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tab. Seismic Sense is 1 mana. Look at the top cards, X cards your library, where X is the number of lands you control. You get a creature or land from among them and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So 1 mana kind of digs for some more gas. And then I actually really like Solstice Revelations, although you do have to build a little bit more around it. But it's exile the top cards of your library until you exile a non-land. You can cast that without paying its mana cost if the spell's mana value is less than the number of mountains you control. But this one has flashback for 7. Obviously, you need mountains in your deck, so it kind of actually plays well with Shared Roots. And then if you're also, you know, ramping like that with basics and things like that, you can play Seismic Sense. Not that, I don't know if you'd want to play all these lessons in the same deck, but it is interesting. Always hits a non-land too. So some of these are questionable in terms of like main deck ability, but when you start playing things like Divide by Zero or Professor of Symbology, and remember, learn, you can go get a lesson from your sideboard, or you get to discard and draw. So something like Divide by Zero can also fuel Accumulate Wisdom by discarding, you know, extra lessons you might not be using into the graveyard. But we also have a couple things that like make use of it, like Retriever Phoenix enters the battlefield if you cast it, learn, and then if it's in your graveyard, if you would learn, you can bring this back to the graveyard from the graveyard instead, which is kind of cool. There's like a white learn card that's like 1 mana. You can play Faithless Looting, so you can build some sort of weird Phoenix list. There's also Sokka Bold Boomeranger, which is new. Discard 2, draw 2, which also fuels Accumulate Wisdom. It's already in blue and red, so you can play Boomerang Basics, and then whenever you cast an artifact or lesson spell, you put a counter on it, so it grows pretty quick if you're playing these kinds of things. These are just the lessons that stood out. Obviously, if you're building something like this, you can, you know, lean a bit more into them, but I'm not sure that the lack of learn cards, or at least the bad ones we have from Strixhaven, would warrant a specific learning deck. I think you're just better off playing these as is, but still cool to think about nonetheless. So we're gonna keep moving on here. Benevolent River Spirit, 2 mana, 4/5. You have to Waterbend 5 as additional cast. Has flying, ward 2, and when it enters, scry 2. That's a lot. First thing, obviously, Waterbend 5 is a high cost, so why not cheat it out, right? You can discard it and Helping Hand it back to the field. If you're playing Helping Hand or Unearth or something like that, you can also be playing it, or an Oculus. And these are both some decent, you know, flying beaters that you can power out pretty quick. But then there's also like Birthing Ritual, you know, sack your 1-drop or whatever and get a 4/5 on turn 2. I really like the idea of Breakout for a Teamer Shell. Double blue and green red. is a little crazy, but you might not be casting this like as is every single time. But being able to put this straight onto the battlefield, a flying ward 2 with haste on turn 2 is pretty hot in my opinion. So there's a lot you can do with this. It's an uncommon. I don't know if it's better than like Oculus and stuff like that in terms of like it goes in similar shells, but it's possible you might be able to play them together or try something new. But it's also a spirit. So, you know, yes, it has a high cost, but like if you're in blue-white, you can still play Helping Hand. And then you also get access to some decent like one drops. You get like Mausoleum Wanderer. You get Rattlechain, Spell Queller. You get a Lord Effect, Kira, which basically makes this really hard to kill. You get, you know, Skyclave Apparition. So there's a lot of support for the tribe too. It's just kind of figuring out like how deep do you want to go into the cheating versus the tribal synergies versus, you know, all that kind of jazz. So I think it's powerful, but just gotta figure out what it competes with and what kind of shell you want to put it in. Grand, dude. Love me Grand. It's not anything crazy. 1 mana, legendary creature. It's a 1/2. When it taps, you draw a card, discard a card, and then non-creature spells you cost 1 less to cast as long as there are 3 more lessons. So obviously, could go in a lesson shell, and it's not like something wild, but it is a loot effect on a 1/2 1 mana creature. Legendary, so it plays with Mox Amber. You can loot a lot if you're playing like Rona, also Trader's Rona. And it's also pretty good with something like Synthesizer Lab Ship or Smuggler's Copter, because you can just like start churning through your deck. I know in the last brew review we talked about Throne of the God Pharaoh, which would be kind of hot, because then at the end of turn you start draining life. It can, you know, station Synthesizer Lab Ship. So I'm not like high on this card, but I think it's neat that we finally have a decent looter at 1 mana, and it might lead to something, but it's nothing crazy. Tiger Seal, dude. I feel like 10 years ago there would be a whole deck around this card, in terms of like similarities to Delver. But, you know, Tameo and things like that, I mean, even Delver has flying, just kind of outclass it in terms of a blue 1-drop. I mean, you could play with it. If you remember, like, Ninja Bear Delver with, like, Phantasmal Bear and the Ninjutsu, whatever card that draws your card when it hits the opponent, could lead to something like that. Vigilance, 3/3 for 1 mana. You tap it, but whenever you draw your second card each turn, you untap it. Kind of hot. Kind of cool. Don't know if it's worth it, but if you're already in blue and you're playing like this sort of low to the ground tempo shell, I think it's got to be pretty easy to draw. I mean, if you play it with Tameo, you're making clue tokens anyway, so you can just crack a clue to untap it if you need to. Also really hot with Prof's Eidetic Memory. So like turn 1 Tiger Seal, it taps the next turn, and then you draw your card for a turn, play Prof, draw a card, untap it, put the counters on that. Suddenly it's a 4/4 that you can 4/4 Vigilance that you get to swing with. And then hopefully you can just keep changing things from there, like chaining card draw from there. So it's funny that's a cat too. Play it with a Johnny. But I don't know. It's interesting. 1 mana 3/3s are always you know, fun cards. Old Growth Dryad or Nakatl and things like that. But I'm not sure it's going to do anything with Delver and Tameo running around. But maybe we could play it in a similar deck. Next one, Tylee Chi Blocker. 3 mana, legendary creature, ally. Another ally you can use. Prowess on a 2/1. Has flash. And then when it enters, tap up to 1 target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Tylee. So very similar to like a Murpho Trickster. Obviously, it's a better beater. It is only a 2/1, but with Prowess, it can grow. It is a little weird because if you're playing on with flash, you're trying to play that on your opponent's turn. You're probably in some sort of, you know, tempo-y, control-y, counterspell, hold-up interaction kind of shell. So the Prowess is kind of a nombo if you're casting spells on your opponent's turn. But I did really like the idea of it with Gossip's Talent. So that's just a 2 mana. When a creature enters, you surveil 1. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. Ty Lee. And then at level 3, which is 4 mana, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you can exile, then return it. So, level 2, you make Ty Lee unblockable, and then level 3, every time it hits, you get to bounce it and tap something else down, and that effect sort of stays static as long as you control Ty Lee, so you can just keep tapping down whatever your opponent plays until they remove it, and they stay tapped. So, kind of like putting a pseudo lock on your opponent. I don't know if it's going to lead to anything, but I just, like the idea of it, so we might mess around with it. Pretty cool. Wan Shi Tong, boys. Librarian. He who knows 10,000 things. That's a lot of things to know. 2 mana, 1/1. Baseline. Flash Flying Vigilance. So you can just throw a 2 mana 1/1 with Flash. Whenever an opponent searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. If you cast it with X counters on him, kind of like a Hydroid Crisis, you draw half cards, round it down. That's a lot. It's legendary, it's 2 mana. Flash is nutty. If you're playing something like Ghost Quarter or Feel of Ruin, you can force searches on your opponent and use it as an engine. Gets bigger, draws cards. Somewhat similar to something like Ledger Shredder or Fairy Mastermind, where you can use it to just like continually get card advantage. Obviously in Historic, it's a little different because, we don't have the fetch lands like Timeless does. So it might be better in Timeless, but also not good enough for Timeless at the same time, which is kind of weird. But it's just a powerful effect all around. Plus it's a bird. Plus it's a spirit. You can play like a blue-white flashless with Spell Queller. I don't know if you'd want to put this in like High Noon, but it's also kind of cool in High Noon. Or a similar style deck. And, late game, it's kind of like a mini Sphinx's Rev that comes on a body. You don't gain the life, but you can cast it at instant speed, and it starts to grow as you go. There is a lot of, Green Sun Zenith decks running around Historic, so I guess it can grow pretty fast. People do play Prismatic Vista and things like that, but I think we'll just have to wait and see, because I don't know what shell would want this like right off the bat, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to keep an eye on this card, but we'll definitely have to explore it on stream together. Next up, Day of Black Sun. 2 mana and X. Each creature with mana value X or less loses all abilities until end of turn. Destroy those creatures. It's just kind of adjacent to Toxic Deluge. It does get around Indestructible, right? Those creatures will lose Indestructible, so you get to blow them up. Instead of toughness, it does hit mana value, which is kind of relevant depending on the meta. But more importantly, the lose all abilities is kind of cool. Yawgmoth isn't like crazy popular right now, but being able to wipe the board and shut down a Blood Artist or a Young Wolf Undying Trigger or Persist or whatever for just like 4 mana, like a Damnation, is pretty hot. There's just all sorts of stuff that it just kind of stops. So, we already have we have Bantu's Last Reckoning, we have Toxic Deluge, we have Damnation, we have Crux of It. We have a lot of black board wipes. So we're just kind of adding this to the arsenal, but when things like, against Boros Energy, if you cast it for 2, suddenly a Johnny doesn't flip over anymore, and things like that. So excited to test it. It's probably more of a sideboard card, but I think it's a cool card to definitely have in the toolbox when it comes to black-based decks in Historic. Chat, this card's kind of hot. Foggy Swamp Visions, 3 mana, 1 in double black, sorcery. As an additional cost, you waterbend X, which is tap your creatures or artifacts. And then you exile X target creature cards from your graveyard. For each creature exiled this way, you get a copy of it. And maybe your next end step, you sacrifice those tokens. So, 1, the exile is from any graveyard, not just yours. So you can choose your opponent's stuff too. 2, those cards get removed from the graveyard. You get token copies. and then they go away by being sacrificed at the next end step. So it's kind of like a Rally of the Ancestors, but your creatures can help pay for it, which is cool. That means it probably, since it's black, it kind of already fits in like an Aristocrat shell with Blood Artist, Rally as backup. You can play this as extra copies or vice versa. But with these two cards, the fact that it makes tokens makes it spicy, right? You could warp a Sunborn, use it to pay for the Waterbend, and then create a copy, and then suddenly everything you get back, you get 2 of, which is wild. And then we do have Zergo Thunder's Decree, which says at the beginning of your end step, warrior tokens you control have this token can't be sacrificed. So I don't know, you know I'm a fan of warriors. We took 80 card Naya warriors to Mythic multiple times. Maybe we delve into some other weird variation. You also get to play Mobilize, so you can play, you know, Voice of Victory and Stadium Headliner and stuff in a Mardu shell with Foggy Swamp Visions. You play, you know, you tap some things, reanimate Zergo, and then suddenly it's a warrior. All your other warriors that come back too can't be sacrificed, so you just get to keep them around. I think that's a pretty sweet idea. It might be too cute, but you're already in like a low to the ground Mardu shell, and this is some sweet sort of hedge against board wipes or to rebuild your board against a removal heavy deck in the late game. It just has a lot of cool things because of that token clause. So really excited to mess with this. We'll have to play with it. Judy, one of many. 2 mana, Human Advisor, 2/2. For a black, you can tap it, you surveil 1, you create a token that's a copy of it, then sacrifice an artifact or creature. You can activate only as a sorcery. So it kind of replaces itself. It can sacrifice itself or an artifact. But for 2 mana, 2/2, you can do a lot of fun things with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and Tyvar and Pitiless Plunderer. You can, like, you know, throw a counter on Pitiless Plunderer with a Judy under Cauldron, right? Pay 1, tap this, and then you get a copy of this. And then you can sacrifice the original, which then creates a treasure token. If you have Tyvar on the field or something to give it haste, you can then do the same thing, use the treasure token to activate, pay 1, sacrifice it, make a copy of it, and then you can loop for infinite Death Traders, artifact ETBs, and things like that. So throw in a Blood Artist or the like, and you got yourself a little infinite combo. These cards, I mean, at least Cauldron and Tyvar are already found in some sort of Cauldron decks pretty often, so I don't think it's much of a stretch to throw in Judy. Probably not incredible versus your other 2-drops, but I think it's relatively, if you're playing like a Birthing Ritual style list, it's probably pretty easy to find as just like a 2-of or something, and then you have access to another combo in your list. So excited for that. We'll have to see. The problem is you also, a lot of these kind of things, you need ways to put counters on things. So actually, I don't know if the combo I was explaining doesn't quite work without that, because you need to put a counter on the Pitiless Plunder you create. But I know there's like the Grist First Day of Class combo, so you can play First Day of Class, or just literally any other thing that puts counters on ETB or when a creature dies or whatever. So spicy for sure. Or you could play like Young Wolf, right, with a Tyvar, and then just never sack the Pitiless Plunder. Do something like that. I don't know, but we'll take a crack at the shell. Seems interesting nonetheless. Next one, Obsessive Pursuit. 2-mana enchantment. When it enters and at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, you create a clue. Whenever you attack, you can put X counters on target attacking creature, which X is the number of permanents you sacrificed. If it's 3 or greater, that creature gains lifelink. So it's like a Bitter Blossom for clue tokens, which is weird. But it also triggers off your sacrifice things. So if you're sacking clues, you're sacking Prismatic Vista, you're sacking something to Village Rites, you get to continually try and put counters on things, your creatures you're swinging with, and then gain some life back, hopefully, if you sack those 3 or more cards. But the cool thing is it's a pretty sweet engine for something like Golbez or Academy Manufacturer, right? You don't even have to swing. Yes, you lose life, but you're just cranking out a clue every turn. So if you have Academy Manufacturer on 3, suddenly you're making a clue, a food, and a treasure token every single turn. If you're playing Golbez, you get a scry every time, and then you get to build into the 4 or more artifacts clause, and then the 8 or more artifacts clause pretty easily, as I don't know if people are going to be playing a lot of artifact removal in the main deck. So I could definitely see this in some sort of grindy artifact-based mid-range list. Also, like I said, if you're playing like Blood Fountain, right? That's 2 artifacts. You play Obsessive Pursuit on 2, that's 3, and you get another one on turn 3, that's 4. You can play Demonic Junker, you know, has affinity for artifacts. You can play Herald of Anguish, which has Improvise. So maybe like a mono black affinity list with like Refurbished Familiar and something could be cool, because this is like pumping out things. You get Vault of Whispers, but then you also have fuel for like the late game. You just keep cranking out clues. I think that'd be pretty spicy, and it's only 2 mana, so it's not that much of an investment. My Scornful Striker, first strike, 2/2 for 2, human ally, another part of the ally list maybe in the sideboard, or just if you're trying to be aggressive, you can play it main board. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, they lose 2. I mean, it's a decent effect on a legendary creature, right? Kind of a black Eidolon of the Great Revel. It is whenever a player casts a non-creature. So if you're a creature-based list, it's obviously better against mid-range and control. Doesn't have any protection, doesn't have an ETB or anything, but it can be pretty punishing as a sideboard card against like those combo lists like Magebane Lizard is, because they're gonna have to spend time to either remove it or just, you know, try and be cautious as they combo off, or else they get too low on life and you take them out. There is, we'll talk about it more as we go through some other cards, but there is a dream of mine to build some sort of like Hate Bears list that's not white, like black-red, and this kind of plays cool with Orcish Bowmasters. Suddenly you're punishing extra draws, you're punishing non-creature spells. If you're playing Eidolon, you're punishing low-to-the-ground aggro decks at the same time. So I don't know exactly where I want this, but it's a human, relevant, it's an ally for that deck if we ever get there, and I think it's just a decent card. Not like crazy, but something good to have access to in a mono black shell. Firebending Student got a little bit of buzz. 2/2 for a 1, or I'm sorry, 2 mana for a 1/2 prowess. Firebending acts where this acts as this creature's power. So that means when it attacks, you add red mana equal to its power, which lasts until end of combat. So kind of Kiln Fiendy, right? Or at least you could play it in the same shell, both 2 mana cards. But if you're playing like, you know, turn 1, or you're playing this on turn 2, and then turn 3 you monstrous rage it, and it becomes, you know, it gets a prowess trigger. So suddenly it's a 5/3, right? With trample. Then you swing, you generate 5 red mana, so you could like, you know, cast whatever other pump spell you want, and then Teamer Battle Rage, and it's gonna grow even more and kind of get out of control quickly. With Kiln Fiend also swinging, right? This gets +3/+0. You can play like Slickshot Show Off in that same sort of deck. So I think Wizards just keeps printing disgusting red cards. It is odd that you have to cast all those spells during combat. And then ordering and sequencing of those is important too, because obviously you want to maximize the amount of mana you can make, but also the spells you cast. But you want to get prowess triggers, but in order to do that, you have to cast it before so that you have a greater power to get more mana as it attacks. So it's definitely a cool card for sure. I'm sure someone will break it, or it will lead to some crazy stuff in Standard. But I think it has a decent home in like a mono red or blue red prowess shell in Historic as well. Redirect Lightning. We haven't gotten a crazy like bolt bend effect in a long time. Or I guess what else is that? Ricochet Trap. But this is 1 mana. You either pay an additional 2 or 5 life, and you get to change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. So In red, if you think like I think, this is basically 1 mana, 5 life, counter target, counter spell. Right? They go to counter your thing, you redirect lightning, change their counter spell to target redirect lightning, it fizzles, and you land. It also does some other stupid stuff where like your opponent, you play mountain on one. I don't know why you're not playing a Swiss Spear or something, but you play mountain on one, opponent goes Thoughtseize, you redirect it for 5 life because you're crazy and you Thoughtseize them instead. So it's just a fun card in general. I think it could blow out a lot of people. It's a lesson, so you can play it with those cards we talked about earlier. But it's just a sweet effect to have at 1 mana, especially in red. Zhao, the Moonslayer. 2 mana, 2/2. Legendary creature, human soldier. Menace. Non-basic lands enter tapped. You can pay 7, put a counter on it, and then it turns into a blood moon on a body. So a Magus of the Moon, I guess. Like I said earlier, I have a dream of building mono red hate bears, and I feel like this could be a piece of it. We have all sorts of like interesting punishing effects in red. We don't necessarily have direct land hate in red on arena at the moment. No like Fallen Intermage. We have like Goblin Rune Blaster and stuff, and Blood Sun and things like that. But this on a 2/2 body is sweet, especially with Menace. But we have so many other like fun like Mage Bane Lizard. We have Axelet, 2/2, first strike. Whenever player casts a spell from the graveyard, deals 3. Harsh Mentor. Whenever someone activates ability, deals 2. Direfleet Daredevil steals stuff from their graveyard. You know, Grim Lavamancer, 1 mana, repeatable removal. I think we're getting to a point, hopefully, where you can just punish everything an opponent does during a game, and then eventually just try and lock them out in the later game with Zhao. I also have been playing a lot with the Enigma Jewel and Omen Hawker package lately, which means you can power that 7 mana out pretty quick with these two. I don't know if you want to be playing blue-red, but it'd be like the historic version of Blue Moon, kind of, maybe, sorta. But definitely a powerful effect. 2 mana, 2/2 body that doesn't really do much else besides the land hate. I don't know, no ETB or anything like that. It might be too slow, but excited nonetheless. Badger Mole Cub, guys. This card's sweet. 2 mana, 2/2. When it enters, you Earthbend 1. So that means you get another 1/1. A land turned into a 1/1 creature, right? When it dies, obviously it comes back. And then it says, whenever you tap a creature for mana, you add an additional green. So that means the card you Earthbended now taps for 2 mana. It's basically a Leyline of Abundance on a 2/2 body, which is pretty strong on its own, right? If you're going like turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Badger Mole Cub, right? And you then can animate a land. This taps for 2 mana, and then you know, untap and play something else. You're getting that up to like 5 or 6 mana, depending on what other sort of ramp spells you're playing or creature ramp you're playing. You could easily get 7 on like turn 3 or 4. If you're playing both, if you have like turn 1 Elf plus Leyline, turn 2 Badger Mole Cub, suddenly this guy taps for 3 mana, and the land you just animated taps for 3 mana. Okay, 3, you know, play a land for turn, and then next turn you're already cranking. So I feel like this could do something powerful, but same idea. The ETB helps, but it's a little susceptible. So I can't say anything, but it gets blown out pretty fast. Just eats removal, but it's certainly a powerful effect at 2 mana. We also have things like Prismatic Vista, which works with Earthbend. So if you play, you know, turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Cub, play your Vista Cub, targeting the Vista, you can then sacrifice that, go get a forest, the Vista comes back because it was Earthbended, tapped, and then you're up a land for the following turn. Also cool stuff like crop rotation, right? Same idea. You can crop rotate the land you Earthbended, it comes back, and then you can go fetch whatever you want. Lotus Field, something like that. But I'm excited to see what this does, because I feel like it's combined with Leyline Abundance. You can wrap ramp very, very fast off a turn 1 mana dork. I don't have much to say here. Boys, we're trying to Moon Mist. We talked about this in the last set Brewers review. Boys, I can't talk. And it kind of worked. We played some Moon Mist on stream with some of the Spider-Man cards, and it was pretty sweet. But now we got Aang. They are expensive. Aang Swift's Savior is cool because you do get to airbend stuff, so you can recast it, and then you can just pay to transform it into a 5/5 reach trample, and then it buffs all your other creatures you're attacking with. Obviously the other ones are a little trickier because they're 5 mana, 4 mana, but they're all humans, which means you can play like Cavern of Souls, you can play Rainbow Lands like we talked about in the last one, but they're just a little bit slower besides Swift Savior. I mean, a 4/4 flying land creatures roll have vigilance, and then you get to Earthbend 2 every combat, kind of army in a can kind of effects. I mean, it also gets you a free creature for less. Not the worst, but 5 mana. And then Avatar Aang, Firebending 2. You have to do all of those. We don't really care about that. We're just going to transform it with Moon Mist. Reduces all your spells cost by white, blue, black, red, green. And then you can transform it if you want to gain 4, draw 4 counters on him, and he deals 4 damage. So he can repeatedly transform. He can flip himself back and then Moon Mist again later on if we draw it, and get some crazy value off of that. Do I want to build just an Aang deck? No, we're probably going to slot this into what we were already playing with, like Kren and Cecil and stuff like that. But, Moon Mist stocks are going up, boys. Moon Mist stocks are going up. This is a little one. This is Air Nomad Legacy. It's just a 2-mana enchantment. When it enters, make a clue. Creatures flying, get +1/+1. We played Jeskai Flying Men the other day, and this is just better favorable wins in that deck, right? It gives you something to draw and pump mana into, and you get the same Anthem effect. So, like, turn 1 Judge's Familiar, turn 2 Air Nomad Legacy, turn 3 Mantis Rider. You get to swing for 6. You swing for 2 on 2, and then you swing for 6 on 3. And then you could play like Spell Queller, Mausoleum Wanderer, Skycat Sovereign. So you have a lot of options. But it's just a cute little card, and kind of like a generous buff for the ability to draw an extra card off of that too. Toph the First Metal Bender. I know there's been a lot of talk about this. Non-token artifacts you control are lands in addition to their other types. So they don't tap for anything, just artifacts that aren't tokens are also lands. And then beginning of your end step, you Earthbend 2, which is just, turn a land you control into a 2/2. So if you target an artifact, that artifact just becomes a 2/2 creature. It does lots of things. With Chromatic Lantern, suddenly your Chromatic Lantern is a land, which means it can tap for any color, and it makes all your other artifacts tap for any color. With Ichor Wellspring, it is a 2/2, right? You can Earthbend it because it's a land. You can swing with it or sacrifice it in like an egg style shell. If you do that, Earthbend will automatically return it to the battlefield, so you can get extra value. So off of just 1 Wellspring that you can get off the field, you can draw 3 cards. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, or like Urborg, it turns all your artifacts into lands. So suddenly Yavimaya makes all your artifacts tap for green. And then one of the things I'm excited for is Mindslaver, right? Your Mindslaver becomes a land. You can Earthbend it, pay for, sack it, and then Earthbend brings it right back so you can do it again. So you can infinite Mindslaver someone. You can also play something like Shifting Woodland to have some redundancy and get it back from the graveyard and stuff too. So, I mean, you're already playing green, which means you can ramp pretty quick. So I wonder if like a Toph Mindslaver lock could be a relevant card. You have red and white for removal if you need it. You can ramp pretty quick. Obviously, it's a 2-card combo, and it's a pretty high mana investment, right? You have to get Toph on the field and then pay 6 mana for Mindslaver, and then you have to wait it. Or I'm sorry, it's at your end step, so you have to have 4 mana to activate after that. But I think it's achievable, and we're definitely going to try it on stream. Zuko Conflicted is a 2-mana 2/3 human road. In your first main phase, you just choose one that hasn't been chosen, you lose 2 life. So you either draw a card, you put a counter, add red, or you exile and return it tapped under an opponent's control. I've been playing around with some mono red rogues lists, and I think, I mean, usually rogues is blue black. Sometimes there's like that ninja sub-theme and stuff too. But we have some pretty powerful effects at the moment, right? Thieves Guild Enforcer. We have Una's Blackguard, which makes all your rogues enter with an extra counter on them. And then whenever a creature with a counter on it deals damage to a player, they discard. We just got Sunset Saboteur. I've been messing with Generous Plunderer and Relic Robber to like give your opponent artifacts and then burn them for it. Charming Scoundrel. We got Dothy Voidwalker. Stalactite Stalker. So there's a weird like color shifted version of rogues that I want to try to build. This isn't like, it's tough because you're losing life while you're doing this, but like it swings for 3, you get to draw a card, and it can help sort of double spell in turns. And yes, your opponent gets it, but then it also burns them out as they go through, and you eventually get it back. So I'm hoping with like some sort of combination of all of these, you could have something there. Obviously, like Enforcer plus Voidwalker is a nombo, but between all of these plus like some of the other basic black rogues, there's like the red alchemy card that perpetually gives something haste. That's a 1-drop. That's a rogue. So you could have a lot of fun. I just gotta kind of pick through and see what the support cards are. Like, are we playing like Monstrous Rage and Chain Lightning and being aggressive, or are we like Fatal Pushing and stuff like that too? So, not necessarily like the most amazing card, but definitely I think maybe a piece for a deck like this, some glue to help hold it together, and just, you know, an interesting idea than the usual blue-black list running around. Planetarium of Wan Shi Tong. Just cool. It's a Jank card. This is the Jank Tank. 6 mana, legendary artifact. You scry 2 for 1, and then whenever you scry or surveil, you look at the top card, you can cast that card without paying its mana cost. Yes, you only do it once each turn. However, it's kind of cool with Golbez, because if you're in an artifact, maybe you're like an artifact ramp list, then you can trigger the surveil pretty easily on your turn. Cast something for free and then keep going. But we do have Unwinding Clock, which means untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step, which allows you to untap Planetarium on your opponent's turn and scry. Obviously, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Still has like timing restrictions and stuff. But I don't know. I just think it's cool. It's just a sweet interaction. 6 mana is a lot for an artifact that you then have to activate after. But if you're playing Scrylands and stuff too, it's pretty easy to do every turn and just get additional value. Don't know what deck wants it. Don't know if there's some crazy combo we can do with it, but we'll probably play it. And then next are just the cycle of the basic buddy lands. So Air Temple, Realm, Fire Nation, Agna, all that, Bossing Say. They all enter tapped unless you control basic. Doesn't matter what basic, doesn't have to be their color, just any basic. And then I don't have a ton to say about these, but they're all decent. The white, blue, and green ones are probably better than the red and black. But the first one is just 4 mana, put a counter on each creature you control. Sweet for a white weenie deck. It's basically Gavany Township, but kind of better. Taps for a white. Agna, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. Is basically a Desolate Lighthouse, but in mono blue. So draw and discard. Realm of Ko, the one, I feel like when you're playing a token generating land, you want that token to block, or you're using it as a win con, but generally you're using it to stave off something. And the fact that it makes a spirit that can't block or be blocked by non-spirit creature tokens doesn't seem great, in my opinion. The Fire Nation Palace is interesting because you can turn 2 mana into 4, but you have to pay 2 and tap the land, so you're basically paying 3 to get 4, and you can only use it during your combat. Not exactly sure what kind of deck wants that. Maybe there's something with like an activated ability that you want to jump to, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. And then Bossing Say is super cool. You get to Earthbend 2. It is only as a sorcery, but it is, if you're playing, like I said, Ghost Quarter, Field of Ruin, Demolition Field, or whatever, that does allow for 4 mana plus the land you target, repeatable, whatever, sack triggers on a land. So you can just blow someone up with Ghost Quarter every turn. If you're playing like Ice Till Explorer or something like that, you can do a lot of fun stuff. It's pretty easy to get that much mana to, you know, do some extra land destruction all the time. But it's also just, you know, you're making a 2/2 with haste every turn, which is pretty hot. And then you can also put those on the same creature, right? You can Earthbend on the same land over and over, so you can just keep scaling the creature up too. I like it. But black and red ones, I don't know where to put them. And then we are getting into some of the Eternal cards here. Fire Nation Occupation is interesting and very reminiscent of Sedgemoor Witch to me. So this is just an enchantment. It enters, you get a 2/2 red creature, red soldier with Firebending 1. And then whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, any spell, you get a 2/2 red soldier with Firebending 1. And there's no once a turn clause. So it's a little interesting because it has to be on your opponent's turn. So if it's in black already, so you're probably going to be mainly doing that with like removal. It could be cool in like a blue-black shell, especially if you're playing like, I know there's a blue-black shell running around right now with Estrid's Invocation and Momentum Breaker, where like you could be copying Occupation every turn. You get 2 of them, and then if you know, flash in, what's that card called? -3/-3. You guys know what I'm talking about. Or even like flash in, you know, Omen or something. You suddenly make 2/2 soldiers. And like, I feel like you can scale up and start doing stuff pretty fast with that. Enchantment obviously makes it a little bit harder to interact with, but the ETB 2/2 probably makes this a decent card that it otherwise wouldn't be. Chakra Meditation is a card I am very excited for, chat. I think this card's kind of nutty. 3 mana. When it enters, you get to return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, draw, and then discard unless you have 3 or more lessons. That part doesn't matter. The thing is that it returns an instant or sorcery every turn. So we just talked about Estrid's Invocation, which has it copies an enchantment, and then you get to blink it at your upkeep and copy again. Which means with something like Orum's Chant, you can get Orum's Chant back every single turn for free just by copying Chakra's Meditation with Invocation with its trigger, and then you can just lock your opponent out of the game unless they have instant speed interaction, counter spells, and things like that. If you're playing Oracle of the Alpha and you happen to get like a Time Walk, then you can loop Time Walk every turn. Unsummon, you know, this town ain't big enough, stuff like that. I guess if you have this town ain't big enough, you can also do Chakra Meditation. You can target this, bounce it, replay it. It's a little more mana intensive, but it allows you to loop that too. And then, chat, what about good old Flood of Tears combo? You guys remember Flood of Tears? Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand. If you turn 4 or more non-token permanents you control this way, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So you bounce everything. If you return 4 cards, the main combo was you just put an Omniscience from your hand into play and then replay everything. You would like Fae of Wishes to go grab whatever you wanted and then just win from there. But if you have the normal combo, which is just Flood of Tears plus Omniscience, right? Suddenly you can, let's say you have Chakra Meditation on the field from doing something earlier. Maybe you're playing, you know, green-blue, you rebuy a Growth Spiral or a Fading Hope, whatever. You Flood of Tears, Chakra Meditation goes back to your hand. You put your Omniscience into play. You cast Chakra Meditation for free, bring Flood of Tears back to your hand, play out a couple more permanents, and then Flood of Tears again for free, and repeat. And then suddenly you're looping all of that every single turn. At the same time, you have Chakra Meditation, so every time you cast Flood of Tears, you get to draw through your whole deck, which means you can then loop until you hit Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, cast it, draw, and you win the game. You can also like play Karn and go get Ancestral Statue plus like Aetherflux Reservoir. There's a lot of ways you can win after that. So super excited with that. I want to lock some people out of the game and do some crazy combos and stuff. So that's probably one of the first things we'll brew on stream once set releases. This card's interesting. Waterbender's Restoration. It's just a 2-mana instant. You have to Waterbend X as additional cost, and then you exile X target creatures you control, and then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This card's like kind of crazy, right? It's 2 mana. The creatures that you're going to exile pay for it. Yes, you have to tap them, but then it's instant speed, and then you get to return them at the beginning of the next end step right away. So it's like an Eerie Interlude for 2 mana in blue. If you're doing like Cyber Siphoner, right? When it enters, you return target instant sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, and then if it would die, it shuffles back in. If you don't have anything else in your hand, it's just 2 mana. So, like, you do an early restoration, you cast Cyber Siphoner, you restoration, you bounce Siphoner plus whatever else you have on board. You're probably in blue-white if you're playing Blade Effects with, like, Ephemerate and stuff. And then everything comes back. You use Siphoner to return restoration back to your hand, and then every single turn now you can bounce your whole board and just get crazy value. So it's like another loop with Cyber Siphoner. You could be mono blue if you want, but now it's redundancy to Ephemerate as well at 2 mana, which seems wild to me. This is more so for Timeless. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if we've heard at the time of this video what's pre-banned or anything like that in Historic, so take these with a grain of salt. But Frantic Search is pretty sweet. Draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, untap 3 lands. Obviously, Pour Over the Pages is sort of the go-to land untapper with like Blue-Red Lotus and Historic. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get this in Historic, but I'm sure you can power this out pretty fast in Timeless. With Lotus Field especially. We have Crop Rotation too, so I'm sure you can come up with any combo Stormy deck your heart's content. Alright, next up, we have Empty City Ruse, which is a 1 white mana sorcery. Target opponent skips all combat phases of their next turn. We recently got Darkness. We have Fog. We have Orm's Chance. So there is a possibility that we can build Abzan Turbo Fog pretty easily. Howling Mine as a card draw engine. You can play Gaia's Blessing to recur things and shuffle cards back in, so you can just continually do it forever. But I think this card's pretty hot. We have 3 1-mana effects that stop your opponent from dealing combat damage to you. This one is cool because it gets around something like Questing Beast or Frenzied Ballot. But then we also have Orm's Chant at 1 mana with Kicker for 1 that also prevents things. So we've played a bunch of Turbo Fog in the past. I don't know if we've played Abzan before. We might have played like Green Black. I can't remember. But I'm excited to switch gears and see if we can come up with something for this in Historic. I think it'd be sweet. This is kind of combo. We're getting Heartbeat of Spring as well as Rites of Flourishing. So each of those make your lands tap for additional mana. They're 3-mana enchantments. But Rites of Flourishing also lets you draw an additional card. Now, notice all of these are symmetric, right? So you get extra mana, your opponent gets extra mana, you get extra cards, opponent gets extra cards. We do already have Mana Flare on the clients, and we have built Storm decks with that before. With like Nissa and Iridescent Tiger and Bring to Light and all sorts of interesting cards. I don't know if having 3 different versions of this effect in decent colors is gonna do anything for us. But as a brewer, it's always good to like keep some cards in the back of your mind, especially Rites of Flourishing, because they can enable some stupid stuff, especially when you have access to 12 of these effects. I don't know if you need 12 of them, but 8 in a single deck is pretty hot already. Blasphemous Act, dude. 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. It's a sorcery for 9 mana. It deals 13 damage to each creature. I used to play this bad boy back in Innistrad Standard with Stuffy Doll. And then we got Boros Reckoner right after. We also have Screaming Nemesis now. So you get a couple of these on the field. Blasphemous Act, suddenly your opponent takes 13. If you play Screaming Nemesis, they also take 13, then they can't gain life. If you have both of them, they take 26. I think there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with Blasphemous Act. It's also just like an okay board wipe in red. I don't know what kind of red deck needs a board wipe that costs 9 mana. And if you're getting to a point where you're casting it, your opponent probably already a little ahead of you. But I know Brawl players love it. But for me, we're trying to combo with it and deal 13 damage to some people. So I think we definitely have to build it. Plus, the cool thing is we're going to probably be in like a mono red shell, and Boros Reckoner is already 3 red, so we can play Nykthos to power this out ahead of curve too, even if we're not committing that many creatures to the board. This is for Timeless. I don't think we're getting Dark Depths in Historic. But this is a legendary Snowland. Enters with 10 ice counters on it. You can remove an ice counter on it for 3 mana, and when it has no ice counters, you sack it. You get a 20/20 Merit Lage black avatar creature with flying indestructible. Gives a lands deck possibly the ability to become the real deal in Timeless. We have Thespian Stage, so you can just copy it. Has no counters, so you immediately get a 20/20. But we also just got Vampire Hexmage from the Arena Powered Cube, which is another way to remove all the counters. That's all I really gotta say. I'm excited to see what people do with this. Lands decks are super cool. So if we can get a decent one in Timeless, I'll definitely hop on that train and try it out, because I haven't played that in a long time. But I think people are talking about this one a lot already, so I don't have too much to say about it. But I'm excited that it's coming to the client. Chat, we have Descendant's Path. 3 mana. Beginning of your upkeep, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card that shares a creature type with a creature you control, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. Plus, we have Sylvan Tutor on the client. So, you know, you play an It That Heralds the End, you play a Descendant's Path, and if you reveal an Eldrazi the next turn, you cast it for free. We have Sylvan Tutor, so then you can go find an Emrakul, put it on top of your deck, and your next upkeep, reveal Emrakul, cast it for free. We also have Changelings. I don't know what else we would want to cast, but you could play a Changeling deck and still hit Eldrazi or some other crazy card. But you know, I gotta try it out, right? We gotta cast Emrakul for 3 mana. It sounds sick. So we'll probably mess around with that, especially with Sylvan Tutor. That's relatively easy to combo up. Plus, you get access to Udin's Labyrinth as well as Eldrazi Temple 2, and you could play like Micro Spawns. You can have a decent plan B, where like Descendant's Path is just trying to generate value, but then sometimes you just flip into Emrakul on like turn 3 or 4 or whatever and just kill your opponent. So super pumped. We're also doing Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. This is a well-known modern deck, Shapeshift. I don't know if it's the original form of Shapeshift is as good anymore, but it is like there's some primetime variants and stuff too. But we have Primeval Titan, we have Prismatic Omen, we have Dryad of the Elysian Grove, we have Shapeshift, we have Splendid Reclamation, we have Shifting Woodlands, we have Thespian Stage. We have so much stuff to actually make Valakut work and like wombo combo some people. Might look a little different from the historic version or from the modern version, but historic has a lot of tools to make this work pretty easily. So we also have like Farseek and stuff too. So I think there can be a decent Shapeshift deck hopping around. And that's it. That's all I got to talk about. Obviously, there's a lot of other cards that are cool or flavorful, and I'm not saying like we're not going to play with those, but as I went through this weekend, those are the cards that sort of piqued my interest the most. I know it was a lot. It was a lot. But I appreciate you watching. If you have any ideas or brews, you always feel free to post them in the comments. But I'm excited. Avatar looks cool. One of my favorite, cartoons as a kid growing up. And I think it fits well into the Magic universe as a Universes Beyond set. So I'm excited to play with it. Definitely some interesting stuff. Doesn't seem like crazy powerful. Besides like some of the stuff that we're getting in the bonus sheet for the Eternal formats and Arena. But I think we're gonna have a lot of fun brewing with the new mechanics. Water bending, earth bending seems cool. Air bending seems cool to do some cheeky stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So obviously, you can find all these decks that will be brewing once the set releases on my Mosh Field, which will be in the description. And then you can always feel free to stop by my stream on Twitch/MTG Jank Tank. We're there Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays at 8 p.m. at the moment. We also, this is a new thing, the MTG Jank Tank website is somewhat up and running. It's still got a lot of tweaking, but I've been working on this myself, and it is possible. It's still a little buggy. We got some things to sort out, but this will be the home for as much jank as I can fit on it. Modern, historic, timeless, pioneer. Basically, I was a modern guy growing up, so I still keep track of all that stuff. But now that I play Arena, I like to keep track of the janky things we find there too. So you'll be able to come here, check out deck lists, see some primers. You'll see some content, some videos that I post on YouTube will go here and things like that. And then you can even send me your decks right on this. So feel free to check that out. Don't worry, I know some things are broken. I'm working on it. But it'll be a permanent home for the jank that I stream and brew. So very excited and looking forward to sharing that with the MTG community pretty soon. But besides that, thank you for watching. I'm excited for Avatar, and I know we're gonna have a lot of fun. So hopefully I will catch you guys in the next stream. But until then, happy brewing.